The first time the widow of fallen soldier LaDavid Johnson is opening up.
She is talking about the condolence call from President Trump that sparked a lot of controversy over what he allegedly said and didn't say. KCON9 political reporter Dave Bryan is here now with details on the phone call straight from Johnson's widow, right, Dave?
Yeah, that's right. And she's really elaborating and agreeing with Congresswoman Wilson on this. So that's where today's sort of saga begins. Today's events in Washington were focused on the death of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson and the 3 other Americans who were killed in Niger, on the conversation between President Trump and Sergeant Johnson's grieving widow, and on the 2 sides of President Trump, who continues to spar with the widow while heaping praise on another military hero today. At the White House Monday, in an emotional ceremony, President Trump attached the Medal of Honor, America's highest military award, to Mike Gary Ross, who was a Green Beret medic in 1970 when he saved several lives, including a military crewman who was shot in the neck in Laos and going into shock. In administering the award, President Trump was generous with his praise.
Under the machine gun fire, Mike treated the wounded soldier. He shielded the man with his own body and carried him back to safety.
But on the same day, Trump is still engaged in a running disagreement with the wife of another fallen soldier who was killed in Niger a couple of weeks ago in a terrorist ambush. Maisha Johnson, the widow of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, spoke out for the first time about the phone call she received from President Trump last week.
The president said that he knew what he signed up for, but it hurts anyways. He couldn't remember my husband's name. I was very angry at the tone of his voice.
The president tweeted that his conversation was respectful and that he clearly spoke Sergeant Johnson's name from the beginning without hesitation. But that's not what Mrs. Johnson heard.
Only way he remembered my husband's name because he told me he had my husband report in front of him.
In the car with Mrs. Johnson when the president called was Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, a friend of the Johnsons who charged the president was insensitive to Mrs. Johnson. That triggered a barrage of personal attacks on Wilson, an easier target. The president tweeted 3 times using the word wacky to describe Wilson. The press secretary at the White House essentially calling her a phony.
If you don't understand that reference, I'll put it a little more simply. As we say in the South, all hat, no cattle.
And Chief of Staff John Kelly joined in too.
Even for someone that is that empty a barrel, we were stunned.
Kelly also incorrectly stated that Congresswoman Wilson bragged at a news conference for a new federal building in South Florida a few years ago that she was the one who pushed through the funding. But a video of her remarks showed that she did not say anything even remotely related to that.
To beat up on somebody like Frederica Wilson and for Kelly, General Kelly, to do that, I got to tell you, it is shocking to the conscience. And you know what I'm afraid of? A lot of people look at President Trump and hears the various insulting things he says. And I'm hoping that that is not metastasizing to General Kelly.
We should not be fighting about a brave American who lost his life serving his country. That should not be the topic of discussion in America today.
Now, in a related development, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff revealed at a news conference today that the 4 U.S. military men who were killed in the Niger attack were on their way back to their operating base from a reconnaissance mission when the firefight began. But he said they waited an hour before calling for support. Jeff, Lena?
Yeah, and a question on that attack. What took them so long to call in that air support?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think anyone knows for sure, but General Joseph Dunford Jr., the chair of the Joint Chiefs, told reporters he thinks they waited so long because they thought they had things under control and didn't need any backup support until it was too late. And by the time French fighter jets flew over the battle, it was already 2 hours since the ambush began. And he delivered a long list of still unanswered questions about the attack, intelligence, the separation of Sergeant Johnson, and why it took so long to recover the body of Sergeant Johnson. Senate Armed Services Committee Chair John McCain declared the American people should know what's going on in Niger and why U.S. military personnel are there. Jeff, Lena?